In the waters off Venezuela, U.S. forces have just carried out their fourth strike in a month, killing 4 men aboard a small speedboat accused of smuggling drugs. Tonight, we'll dive deep into what happened, why it matters, and how this escalating campaign could reshape U.S. foreign policy in Latin America. Over the past 5 weeks, the Trump administration has launched at least 4 lethal operations against vessels in international waters near Venezuela, all targeting suspected narco-traffickers. The first strike on September 2 sank a speedboat, allegedly bound for Trinidad, killing 11 suspected cartel members, a move publicly billed as an unprecedented U.S. airstrike in the Caribbean since Panama in 1989. A second strike followed on September 15th, destroying another vessel said to carry 3 tons of cocaine, with President Trump himself posting footage on Truth Social. A third attack came in late September, again in international waters, when a drone strike obliterated a boat loaded with narcotics, an operation that Venezuelan media condemned as aggression. Then, on October 3rd, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced via X that the fourth operation killed 4 narco-terrorists aboard a small speedboat near Venezuela's coast. On Friday morning, U.S. military forces engaged a vessel operating in international waters off Venezuela, classifying it as a narcotics trafficking target. Secretary Hegseth's social media post claimed American intelligence unequivocally verified that the boat carried a substantial quantity of narcotics, destined to poison our people. He asserted that the 4 individuals aboard were linked to a terrorist-designated cartel, and thus lawful targets under an armed conflict framework declared by President Trump. No American forces were harmed, according to Hegseth, and footage shared online shows the vessel exploding under what appears to be a missile strike. According to the Washington Post, Hegseth did not name the specific cartel, but insisted the ship functioned along a known narco-trafficking route. U.S. intelligence reportedly tracked the vessel's movements via satellite and drone, monitoring its departure from Venezuela's Paria Peninsula in early hours before authorizing lethal force. The operation illustrates advanced interagency coordination between U.S. Southcom, DEA, and U.S. Southern Command to surveil and interdict high-speed boats in the region. Critics argue that the evidence linking these small vessels directly to large-scale trafficking networks has not been publicly released, raising questions about thresholds for lethal action. In September, President Trump sent Congress a memo declaring U.S. forces engaged in an armed conflict with drug cartels, labeling them unlawful combatants rather than criminals. Under the Authorization for Use of Military Force, AUMF, and international law, combatant status permits targeting enemy forces, but drug smugglers have historically been pursued by law enforcement. Legal analysts warn this reclassification risks setting a precedent for shoot on sight, orders outside declared war zones, and could undermine U.S. commitments to sovereignty norms. Venezuelan law experts contend that any military action without Venezuelan consent in its exclusive economic zone could violate the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro denounced the strikes as acts of imperial aggression, vowing to consider a state of emergency to protect national sovereignty. Maduro's foreign minister summoned the U.S. ambassador, accusing Washington of piracy on the high seas, claims U.S. diplomats have dismissed as baseless posturing. In Washington, some Republican lawmakers cheered the strikes as bold moves against the drug war. while senior Democrats raised alarms over executive overreach. Senator Jack Reed warned that Congress has exclusive authority to declare war, arguing the administration's secret campaigns lack proper oversight. Local Venezuelan fishermen report hearing explosions and seeing debris washing ashore. Many believe victims were low-level crewmen rather than kingpins. Human rights organizations warn that these operations could endanger migrant vessels and civilian craft, as alerts may not reach all mariners. In San Juan de Unare, community memos describe funerals for those killed in the first strike, with relatives demanding evidence that their loved ones were narco-terrorists. Pro-democracy activists also decry potential misuse of anti-terror statutes to target political opponents under the guise of the drug war. Since early September, U.S. Navy deployment in the Southern Caribbean surged, with 8 warships and over 5,000 sailors and Marines patrolling key routes. Pentagon officials say this posture aims to deter cartel operations and reassure regional allies, including Colombia and Trinidad and Tobago. But Venezuelan state media labels the buildup a blockade, heightening tensions as Caracas drills with Russian S-400 systems on its northern coast. Strategic analysts predict more strikes unless cartels rapidly recalibrate their smuggling routes, potentially pushing operations toward Panama or Jamaica. Many see these strikes as the latest example of the Trump administration's unconventional use of military power to pursue non-state actors. Compared to previous anti-cartel strategies like Plan Colombia, this approach bypasses partner nation militaries, sparking debate over sovereignty versus interdiction efficacy. U.S. Southern Command insists that robust maritime interdiction has disrupted million-dollar shipments and saved American lives by reducing overdose flows. Critics counter that cartels will adapt, using drones or semi-submersibles, and that without land-based cooperation, maritime strikes alone cannot stem the tide. With winter surf seasons approaching, traffickers often shift routes, forcing new surveillance strategies and additional assets like P-8 Poseidon aircraft. Pentagon insiders hint at expanded rules of engagement, including potential strikes on airstrips and clandestine jungle airstrips tied to cartels. Congress is preparing hearings, with both sides eager to question Defense Department and State Department officials on legal justifications. International organizations like the OAS may convene emergency sessions if strikes continue, potentially isolating the U.S. diplomatically. The strike off Venezuela's coast is more than a drug war story. It's a test of America's legal boundaries at sea, a flashpoint in U.S.-Venezuela relations, and a window into the future of counter-narcotics warfare. Stay tuned as we continue tracking every development on this unfolding saga. If this analysis helped you understand the stakes in the Caribbean Sea, subscribe for deep dives into today's biggest geopolitical stories, and hit the bell so you never miss an update.